Hi friends and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hello. My name's George Agenbar and I'm a UK music producer. Today's video is all about knowing when to stop. It can be really easy to spend ages working on a project, and we can spend months trying to make something sound perfect. But actually, will it ever be perfect? Will we ever be completely satisfied? I personally think that we'll never be 100% happy with our work. We may reach 99.9%, but never that 100%. And so as creatives, we need to know when to stop working on a project and call it a day. And this can be really hard. But hopefully this video will help you decide if and when your song is finished. So make sure you stay tuned and hit the subscribe button and notification bell for new videos every Wednesday.
And things will never be the same when I hear your name since you kissed me in the rain.
There's never going to be a definitive answer as to when your song is finished. It depends on your track and you as a person, as an engineer, producer or musician. But there can be some telltale signs that let you know you're nearing the end of the process. So I've split this video into positive signs to look for and negative signs to look for. So let's start by looking at some of the positive signs. Normally when you're working on a track for yourself or for a client, you'll have a song in mind that you want your track to sound like. And this is what we call a reference track. Now a reference track is really useful for comparison throughout the whole mixing process, but it's especially useful towards the end when you want to know if your track is nearly finished. If you can listen to your mix and then to the reference track and then to your mix again, and there's no noticeable difference in style or quality, then I'd say that your mix is probably nearly finished, or it is finished. If there is a noticeable difference, you need to pinpoint what it is. Maybe it's an overcrowded frequency, maybe an instrument's up too loud, or maybe there's overcompression happening somewhere in your mix. But whatever it is, you need to go back and fix it and then recompare. And this lets you know when your song is finished, and is really pretty much the whole point of a reference track. As engineers and producers, we can find it really difficult to listen to music in the same way a non-musician would. We're always listening to the drum sound, or for compression or reverb or any little production tricks. And we can't help it, it's just the way we're accustomed to think. But we can use this conditioning to our advantage. If you can sit back and listen to your mix all the way through without a huge urge to make a slight adjustment to something, then this is a really positive sign. It's a good indicator that your mix is probably finished. This is a really useful technique, however it does rely on you being critical of your own work. You have to have that critical ear and be able to analyse what's going on in the mix. And sometimes this can be really hard, especially if you're really close to the project. My best advice would be take a break for a couple of days where you don't listen to the mix, and then come back and revisit it, and this should make you listen to it more critically than before. Now, this may be just me, but I know that I'm onto a winner if my mix can make me groove. If it can get my head bopping and foot tapping, I know that it's pretty much there. It's also a really positive sign that I've achieved a good mix. A song that can make you switch off that analytical side of your brain and allow you to just enjoy the music is the best outcome you can possibly achieve. And it's very likely that other people are going to enjoy it too. So you want a final mix that's going to make you groove, as at the end of the day, music is all about the enjoyment it brings. I think that you can view having a deadline as both a positive and negative thing. On the one hand, it stops us being able to work on a project for ages and ages and dragging out the process and falling down that rabbit hole. But on the other hand, it does mean that we can rush to finish a project and not achieve all that we want from it. It's times like this when organisation and timekeeping is vital. I personally find it a lot easier to set myself smaller sub-deadlines. For example, I'd say, by this date I want to have the vocals tuned. By this date I want to have gain staged. By this date I want to have finished mixing, and by this date I want to have finished mastering, and so on. And now it's not always the case that I stick to these deadlines, but it gives me a good idea as to if I'm on track timing-wise. I would also advise that you aim to finish your mix a few days before your final deadline. And that's so you can take a bit of time not listening to your mix, refresh your ears and rest them, and then revisit your mix to make sure that you're still happy with it. So those are the 4 main positive signs that I look out for when nearing the end of my mixing process. Now let's have a look at some of the negative signs that tell me that I may actually need to just cut my losses and walk away from a project. It's really easy to get trapped in the never-ending editing cycle. This is when you're making really tiny changes, such as turning an instrument down by 0.1 decibels, or changing the amount of compression by 0.5 decibels, or changing the delay time by 10 milliseconds. These changes aren't necessarily going to impact the sound of your mix or improve it. So when you're about to make a tiny alteration in your mix, ask yourself, is this going to improve my mix? How is it going to improve it? And how noticeable or significant will this change be? If the answer is, it isn't, and it's not going to be noticeable, then it's probably best not to make that change. You can also tell that you're making changes for the sake of it, if your instruments and your mix start to sound like it did originally. So essentially, you've gone round in a circle. When this happens, it's a really good indicator that either your mix is finished or you need to take a break. You need to not listen to your song for a few days, come back and revisit it with a fresh pair of ears. We've all been there before, don't worry. When you're working on a project, you're essentially listening to the song on repeat. And hearing a track so many times in such a short amount of time can begin to drive you crazy. And this can happen to anyone, no matter how good the song is. What we need to be able to do is tell the difference between being driven crazy and beginning to hate the song. This is really important. If you begin to actually hate your track, this tells you you need to stop working on it. Music is all about the passion behind it, and it's that passion and emotion that gives music the enjoyment. So if there's no passion behind the work you're doing, it's never going to be your best work. So if this happens, walk away. Revisit the song maybe in a couple of months or a year, and you may fall back in love with it. And if you do, that's great. But if you don't worry, just cut your losses and stop working on the project completely. Remember, not every song is going to be a winner. Again, this sign is a bit like beginning to dislike your song. Of course, you can work on multiple tracks at the same time, and I think it's a good idea to do that. But the trouble is, when you become really excited and obsessed over a new idea, your current track tends to be put on a back burner. And it's at this point that you need to ask yourself, is this track really worth continuing working on? It may be that when you have more time, or when you finish the new exciting project, you revisit your old idea and you become re-inspired by it. But follow where the excitement is. Make sure you're always enjoying the work that you're doing, as this will always achieve the best results. As I said earlier, there's never going to be a definitive answer as to when your track is finished. You've really just got to go with your gut and stop working on a project when you feel happy with the work you've done. But hopefully this video has given you some telltale signs to let you know that you're nearing the end of the process. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you found it useful and helpful. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below, and if there are any other videos you'd like to see in the future. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell for new videos every Wednesday, and I will see you again soon.